Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you is, how did you get started in the entertainment business?
Well, when I was in college, I was playing on a baseball team at a community college here in Central Florida, and I was riding the bench. So on a whim, I auditioned for a play and ended up getting a full theater scholarship, and then started doing plays and got hooked up with an agent and everything in town here when I was in college. And then from there, I just started doing a lot of different things. All started there.
Oh, and what college was it you went to?
That was at the time. It was called Polk Community College. It's now Polk State College. It was just a 2-year school before I went to University of Central Florida, which is where I graduated.
Good. Oh, it's such a large school, UCF. I mean, I wish I went there,
It
but
it is now. When I was there, it was about 1/3 the size it is now. So it was still large, but not like it is today.
wow. I think that probably could have been because there was a lot to be built around Orlando, because a
hmm
lot of construction. Right.
Exactly.
Right. And so when you got involved with Nickelodeon, how was that?
Oh, it was great. I had been a performer at all the theme parks in Orlando prior to Nickelodeon. I was a performer at SeaWorld, at
Hmm.
Disney, and then at Universal. And it was while I was at Universal that Nickelodeon, caught my eye as an attraction. Of course, I grew up as a kid with the Nickelodeon shows, like a lot of people, going way back. Because when I was a kid, it was the old school original Nickelodeon shows, Salute Your Shorts.
Hmm.
You can't do that on television, Double Dare, and all that. And so I visited the attraction, became interested, and eventually became a tour guide there. Universal, had a big fence separating the two, and I saw that there were some production openings, and my first job was on Legends of the Hidden Temple as a production assistant, and I had a good interview, and wanted to make sure that I really got the gig. So the next day, I waited until the people who interviewed me came out of the offices in between the sound stages for lunch, and I jumped into a construction dumpster and made a lot of noise to get their attention. And when I came out, they all stared at me, and I thought, well, maybe they're going to think I'm crazy or they're going to hire me. And they started laughing, and I said, I wouldn't have to be in this dumpster if I had that job. And I got hired later that day. So that's how I got my first job on Legends, which is one of the greatest shows I've ever worked on. Just a fantastic show, a lot of fun, and from there, I just kept getting more work, and it was the start of a nice career with Nickelodeon there.
And I have to say, Legends was my favorite game show, and I used to act it out around my living room. So that's how much of a fan I was, I must say. But
Oh,
yeah, I saw your name as production assistant when I saw an episode, but you weren't there for the first season when a kid got the fastest tempo run because there was a door that was supposed to be locked, but somehow an error made the door locked, and he got the artifact and got out of the tempo run quick. And so you weren't there for that, were you?
no, I wasn't there for the first season, although I heard that story. We taped 40 episodes a season, so we had 3 seasons, and I was there for 2 and 3. And although that kid did record the fastest time ever, they only had about 5 winners all the way through out of 40 the first year, so they tried to make it a little bit easier. I think the second year we had 8 winners, and the third year we had 10, so we only had like 23 winners out of 120. But kids got to win some great prizes. There's a huge cult following of the show, and it's funny because in the credits you said you saw my name. They actually misspelled my first name, which is Ron, R-O-N, 2 N's, in some of the credits, I think, on season 2. But the lady who was in charge of that was 8.5 months pregnant at the time, a good friend of mine, so I didn't give her a hard time about it. It's kind of funny. I laugh about it now when I see it.
And nobody has some trouble misspelling it now, I hope, right?
No, no, and if they usually if they ever did, it was my last name, but not the first name. It's pretty simple, but no one's had any trouble since then, and it's I always look back at it and laugh when I see it. But Legends does have a huge following. It's a great show, great writers, won a lot of awards, Cable Ace Awards. Jed Cohen, the main writer, is brilliant, coming up with all of the backstory and the history and everything that would go along with the Temple Run. And the producers were great. They produced other shows like Love Line with Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew. So they were really cool to work for. And Legends was a unique show. It really combined, the need for kids to think as well as be active. something that's kind of missing today with everything having gone the animation way.
Right, right. I mean, a show like that, I think it would do well because kids are certainly like knowing about history and all that stuff. Do you think something like that should happen now? A creative game show like that, Legends?
I think it would be great, and I think people who were kids back then watching it, a lot of them now are parents and have young children, and I think they would love for them to be exposed to something like that. I mean, Nickelodeon, those '90s shows are still so popular with all of the the '90s are all that, and the streaming stuff online, and bringing back Nick on Nickelodeon. It's just there's a lot of people. Even the contest they had where you could get online and vote for which show you wanted to see, whether it was Rocko's Modern Life versus whatever, and then whoever wins would get on the air. They've had some great stuff the last couple of years, bringing back these '90s shows.
And how does it feel to know that you were a part of that whole 90s nostalgia and all of the great things about it? Like, people still love it today, and it's made such a positive impact on folks. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel very proud to have been a part of it, and I'm glad that there's still an interest in that sort of thing, and hopefully, it will inspire more shows like that, in the future. It's just a great group of people. Nickelodeon always had a very professional but relaxed family kind of atmosphere. The entire cast and crew, we hung out a lot. When we did have a day off on a shoot, on a production, which wasn't often, but we'd always hang out with each other, and whether they were from Orlando or LA or wherever, we were just one big family. Really great time.
Hmm. And going back to Legends, you mentioned that there were quite a lot of winners on the second and third seasons. So how many were there in total? Like, 10, you said?
Yeah, out of 120 episodes, there were 23 winners, if I
Oh.
recall correctly. Only 5 the first season, but I think 8 the second and 10 the third. So it got a little easier, but that was part of the beauty of the show was that it was challenging. It was real. You didn't always get all the way through the temple run, but you still have a chance to win some great prizes and have a great experience. I actually got one of my nieces on the show in the third season. I had twin nieces, and one of them made it through the steps of knowledge initially, and we had some technical problems. Had to go back and reshoot it, and that when they reshot it, she didn't make it through the steps, but she still had a great experience, won some great prizes, and it ensured that I was her favorite uncle.
Oh God! And was it the Temple Run hard to go through or something? Have you gone through it
Oh
yourself?
yeah, I used to plan it all the time. We'd get there early in the morning and run through and try to do mock-ups during like the technical rehearsals. It was really hard, even for us. Even when we knew where everything was, just trying to run through and get it. And of course, I'm a little bit larger than a kid would be running through it, but playing in the shrine of the Silver Monkey and just being there with Olmec rehearsing lines. It was just such a great thing. Dee Baker, who played Olmec, such a talented individual and just become such an iconic figure. But yeah, it was probably my favorite set that I've ever been able to play on. And I've been on the Agra Crag and had my picture taken on there with Steven Spielberg, and I've been on a lot of Nickelodeon sets, but I have to say that temple on Legends of the Hidden Temple is my favorite.
How did you guys come up with how it was created? Like, do you remember? Because no, first season it changed the layout of the Temple Run, and third season it did. But what happened was that in between episodes, the layout would change. I'm like, wow, how did you guys come up with so much themed layouts? You know?
Well, we had very talented people, like I said, and so when the writers would come up with the ideas for the episodes, they would work closely with our set designers and even our stunt coordinators who would actually be responsible for some of the rigging of some of the various things that would happen on the set. And we would basically, it would be trial and error. We would, in between seasons, they would figure the stuff out and just make it work during the season. And the first year, they got a lot of feedback and obviously had a good idea of what was able to be done and what could work, and then just let their creativity take over. So it was just a wonderful combination of getting these skilled carpenters and designers and technicians to make the concepts and the visions of the writers and the producers come to life, and it just really worked well. And then, what finally made it all come together was the kids participating in the show. They had genuine enthusiasm. They were happy to be there, and and they loved it. And it was just a thrill, and it was a thrill for me and everybody to see their faces before, during, and after the shoot. You know, it was just great.
And how many shows did you guys tape a day?
We were trying to get through 4 shows a day if we could. I think we might have even done 5 one time, but normally 4 shows. You know, we would only work so many hours a day. It was long days, but you know, with kids being that age, they're not allowed by law to work past a certain point at night. So we would try to cram in as many as we could and get a whole season done in a couple of months. You know.
I see, I see. And what was your first impression of the Nickelodeon studios when you first got there? Like, what did you think about it?
Well, Nickelodeon was definitely different from any other place. I mean, not only the sound stages where the sets were located, but even just the offices and so forth. Very, very Nick. You know, one room might be zebra stripe with blue and green and pink, and then the next room could be a jungle theme, and then the next room after that could be all black and white. You just never knew. And the outside of the building reflected Nickelodeon's character, the offices, and it really lended to the environment that I spoke of earlier, where while it was very professional, it was very, relaxed a lot at the same time, and just a one big family. We knew we were working in a very special place, even at that time. So it was really sad to see it go when it did, and there's always been hope that maybe someday they'd come back, because it was very popular here in Orlando, very popular for the visitors to Universal to come see, very popular for everyone here who worked on the production.
Right. And it was really huge. Like those sound stages were just ginormous and could
Yep.
really hold up 2 shows a day and 2 different shows taping in one
Mm-hmm.
soundstage and then the Extreme Arena in the back lot for Guts. So I must say you guys really had it big.
Yeah, it was great. Having the sound stages connected to the tour tube that went through was just such an amazing experience to have the people come through, be able to look down on the sets, oftentimes while production was happening live in front of them, having an opportunity once in a while to talk to someone on the floor up to them in between takes or in between shoots. Was just something that they haven't been able to experience anywhere else. That never existed in Los Angeles or New York, and it doesn't to this day, to my knowledge. I mean, and so for them to see their favorite shows and to see and hear their favorite stars and performers, and I was really glad to be a part of that and be able to do the tours and have the role of gakmeister for a couple of years, and actually help them meet their favorite people that they see on TV every day.
And Gagmeister was a great thing working in the Gag kitchen, of course. And what's great was because you could pull Nick actors from kids and let them meet the other kids who were taking a tour of the studio, correct?
Oh yeah, that's right. I would have the GAC stops that we call them, the little pre-shows before the Game Lab show at Universal, where they would get slimed. And as part of the show, once in a while, I would be able to bring people in, such as Kel Mitchell and Keenan Thompson or Amanda Bynes. And Kel was one of my favorites because I would hide a bottle of orange soda on the set, and then at the end of my pre-show, I would say, "Oh, what is this doing here? Who drinks this?" And they would all scream out, "Kel!" And then Kel would jump out and drink the orange soda and say, "What's up?" And it'd be just like Good Burger, and the kids would go crazy, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of people stop by and join me in doing that, and it made it really special for the kids.
That's awesome because I could picture Kel doing that actually.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and the guest directors that we had, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Kim Fields, and the guest celebrities on shows like All That and Keenan and Kel and whatever. It was just they would come by, and whenever a celebrity would come to Orlando and they want to stop by Universal and Nickelodeon, and they would always bring their kids, and that was something that they really wanted to do, either get them slimed or have them, come to the Gak kitchen and taste the booger gak, the earwax gak, the toe jam gak. And I was glad to do it, so I got to meet a lot of people. I remember Glenn Close coming with her daughter when she was shooting the 101 Dalmatians movies, and that was something she really wanted to do. She wanted to come in there, and her little girl wanted to taste gak, so it was great. I loved it. I liked a lot of rock music. I liked Van Halen growing up. Eddie Van Halen's kid, Wolfgang, who's actually in Van Halen now. We slimed him on his birthday at Universal at Nickelodeon. So we did have a lot of celebrities, and that was on their top list when they came to Orlando. We've got to get them slimed at Nickelodeon.
See, a lot of people don't really know this, that celebrities, they used to come through and through the studios all the time. So it's
Well,
really
we
good
had
to
a
hear.
VIP tour group at Universal, which is still there today. And I had a very good friend who lived in the same building with me who would take around a lot of celebrities. Everybody from Mariah Carey to Jennifer Lopez to Jim Carrey. And when those people came, especially if they had kids, that was on their to-do list. They came to Universal. They came specifically to go to Nickelodeon and to have their kids slimed and go to the Gak Kitchen and see the productions behind the scenes. It was a really, really big attraction.
And I think Shaquille O'Neal, he was playing for the Orlando Magic at the time. Did he
Mm-hmm.
pop in, of course?
Shaquille did visit. I don't remember meeting him personally, but I know that he was there. I've met Tiger Woods and some other celebrities that had homes in the Orlando area at the time. But yeah, Shaquille was a big fan of Nick, I understand, and did come and tour the studios. And I think he even shot some promos. But yeah, it was a very very busy place and one of the places to be in Orlando. I mean, you're coming out to Nickelodeon, and I've slimed a lot of kids, celebrities' kids, Michael Jordan's kid, Eddie Van Halen's kid. Back in the day, that's where they took them. That's where the kids wanted to go. And the funny thing is, we had Michael Jordan's kid there, and he had his tongue hanging out, just like Mike used to do back then. I said, that is the spitting image of him. It was so funny. And, of course, Eddie Van Halen's son is in the band now playing bass with them. And this was, 20 years ago. But they all wanted to be there.
I think that's what made the studios work so well because you guys were in Florida in this family friendly environment where you could be the theme of Universal, which was back then ride your favorite movies or be the star. I think that really worked, and I think they were just balancing off of each other, you know? Just
Oh, absolutely. We had instant access to our live studio audiences. We would take them right from the park. And how cool is it to be in Orlando, going around riding your rides, then go in and watch a taping of a show for an hour, hour and a half, whatever it is, 2 hours, and then go back out into the park and have that memory and have that experience. So, yeah, it was a really, really good dichotomy and a really good relationship that we had.
mhm, mhm. And what was the best part about having a live audience? I must say.
Well, you can never replace the energy you get from a live audience. It's just hearing that genuine laughter, and the actors feed off of that. So their performance are even more inspired. Their performances, mine as an audience warmer person, is more inspired because I know, hey, we're getting a real time response, a real time human response to what we're doing, and so we knew instantly that it was working and then it was going to be popular with our television audiences as well.
Yeah, and how long, like, did the audience really stay for the whole show? Like, I mean, I'm not talking like the whole show, I'm like talking about a certain episode. Would they still be there the whole
Well,
time?
sometimes, like a half-hour show, when you subtract, the time for commercials, so you're looking at 22, 24 minutes, whatever the case may be, you wouldn't necessarily have the same audience throughout the whole time. It might be two different audiences, but the good part is, from an audience warm-up person's perspective, is that I always prided myself on if they said, hey, we need to keep this audience here for an hour or an hour and a half, that I would entertain them and keep them so that we wouldn't leave, so we would maintain shot continuity. You could have more than one studio audience throughout an episode and use different camera angles, and the people at home would never know. But one thing you didn't want was you didn't want changes in people in certain locations, frequently, because then that would not maintain continuity. And so keeping that audience there was a priority, and I have to say I had a lot of success at that, and that's something I'm also very proud of.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just to see that, be up close and personal. I mean, we watch it on TV, but for you just to know firsthand what it was like for that experience, I just think it was really great for you to be a part of that, I must say. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was a lot of room to be creative. I used to have a bit called "Stupid Kid Tricks," where they would do things, and I would let them come up in between, and they would just come up with the most ridiculous things, and it was always so funny. Sometimes I would catch the producers and directors actually hold for 30 seconds or a minute before we start taping again because they wanted to see what was going to happen. I was doing, and once I'd go back in, and the red light would come on, and we would continue about our business. So that was another big big boost for me. I loved it.
And speaking of Florida, back then there was a lot of talk about it becoming Hollywood East and all the
Mm-hmm.
fabulous film production and whatnot. But as a Florida native, like, how great was it to know all of this film production going on in the area back then?
Oh, it was wonderful because it was happening right as I was in college and then after college for a few years. So it was perfect timing for me. I was getting out into the workforce and was able to take advantage of all that. And it was called Hollywood East. And for years, it was really, really busy. Lots of production work, lots of acting work. And, you get a chance to really help the local economy and really put Orlando, even more on the map. We were on the map with our theme parks before, but that really took us to a new level. And so when the production started winding down and companies were merged and buyouts happened and decisions were made to move, you know, most of the efforts back to LA and New York or wherever, it was really sad. It was really sad to see it go because we had so here, we have so much to offer, we have good weather, and ultimately it did pull out, and it's just trickled to a slow pace now.
Right. But why do you think there has been a decrease in TV production lately in Orlando or Florida?
I don't know if there's one single answer. I know that when it started to decline back in the day, sometimes you would run across personalities and production groups that would rather be in LA because of the larger support structure that was in place out there. They've been doing movies and television out there for decades. So when you needed something, you had several places to go, whether it was a boom, a lift, a boom, or whatever you needed with the cameras. And in Orlando, we started getting all that, but we didn't have as much readily available as Los Angeles. And so sometimes they would have to have things sent from LA or New York. And I think some production companies didn't like that. And I think in Los Angeles, as a city and the county, they're used to production crews, and so they have certain rules and regulations with, dealing with like local law enforcement and traffic or whatever the situation may be, that they were used to handling and they knew how to work with them. In Orlando, it was all new to us, and we were getting better. And I don't think it was such a problem that the production should have went away, but nevertheless, some people would complain and say, oh, it's just easier to do. But then, of course, production costs were so high in LA compared to Orlando. That's one of the reasons why people came here in the first place. It was cheaper, and we still had warm weather. And in the last several years, you probably know a lot of productions have moved to other locations around the world to avoid taxes and cut production costs and whatever. But as far as Orlando goes, I think it's just, celebrities are really quirky. There was one celebrity, I won't mention his name, but he wanted his $300,000 sports car to be with him. And he did not like the fact that he had to have it sent on a train to Orlando instead of being able to go home at night and have it in his garage. And so you would get, crazy stories like that. But I think the main reason was just that the infrastructure has already been so mature in LA and the support stuff that you need to carry out these productions. And maybe they just didn't feel it had grown fast enough in Orlando and didn't know if it was going to. And then once people started pulling out, it was just a domino effect. And then people, companies were bought and sold and merged. Nickelodeon was part of Viacom, which included MTV, Comedy Central, VH1. When CBS bought that in 2001, they went a different direction. They had new people in charge at the top in New York, and they just started making decisions to cut this and cut that. And that's what ultimately led to the first huge cuts in staff and production in Orlando.
Right, right. But it was a good time back then, I must say. Very good
It
time.
was. It was, man. I had a great time, and I'm glad that younger people like you remember it and still think it was pretty cool.
And you got to be the audience warm-up person, right?
Oh yes, that was one of my favorite roles that I have as audience warm up. I did that for shows like Taina, and of course all that in Keenan and Kel. But I did it for Figure It Out Wild Style, and that gave me an opportunity to meet even more personalities that I liked when I was a little kid, because they would be guest celebrities on the panel. In addition to Nickelodeon stars, we'd bring other celebrities from the entertainment and sports worlds, and they would be on the show. And keeping those people laughing, and what really made me enjoy it was knowing that the executive producers loved it when I was there doing that, and they trusted me to keep the audiences there, keep them engaged, especially when we had technical difficulties, which we sometimes did, especially on shows like Figure It Out Wild Style, when you have animals. We had a pig one time get loose and just pee all over the place, and we had to stop. So while that's getting cleaned up, I had to entertain the audience. Of course, the pig was entertaining enough, but it was just really hilarious. Danny Tamborelli would be on there from Adventures of Pete and Pete, and all of the cast. Summer Sanders would come down and mess with me in between takes and get the audience on her side, and it was a nice little rivalry and competition we always had going. It was really great. And just, they'd have stars from other shows come on and be panelists on that show, and then other celebrities outside of Nickelodeon. And oh man, and Sherman Helmsley is one of them that I remember meeting, and he was really really cool, and I loved him too because I watched when I was a kid. I saw that show, not even in reruns, but when it was actually on, even in the '80s and stuff, Right. And I guess it was on before that in the '70s even, but. Yeah, he was great, man. He was.
I wanted to ask you the slime, of course. The slime geyser that was outside of front. That was very different from the Gat Kitchen, right?
It was. The geyser was very impressive the moment you walked up. It would sound an alarm every 10 minutes, and the kids would get excited, and then the slime would erupt. And the cool thing a lot of people don't know about slime geyser, well, a lot of people do know probably, but maybe some don't, is that there was a time capsule there. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. 1992, it was buried.
Yeah, it's supposed to be opened up 50 years later, and it contained all kinds of items that would have been synonymous with pop culture at the time. So, it's gone now, I guess, but it would have been neat to have been able to be an old man and see that open and see what actually was put in there. But yeah, so that was pretty cool.
And why exactly was it built? Do you know why? For Nickelodeon?
The slime geyser?
No, the time capsule.
Oh, the time capsule. Well, like I said, with most time capsules, it's a way to show future generations, hey, this is what was really cool and pop this time. So, Nickelodeon being such a huge part of pop, wanted to have this capsule so that people could see, what was in there. And I don't know the contents, but I mean, you can imagine what would have been there from the early '90s. But it would have been Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer, and who knows what else,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a really cool idea that they had to have that, and then have it. Ultimately, we're going to have it opened years later. But Nickelodeon was always so creative and did a lot of cool things like that. The Geyser is really special to me because when I was a gakmeister, we had the show at Universal. There was a short video clip that ran in the middle of the show, which featured me scooping up buckets of slime and rushing it back in so that we could use it in the show, and I always thought that was...
And just dump it on the kids' heads, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, time capsule. It's gonna be reburied on 2042. I just hope that Nickelodeon will remember that day and make and rebury it. Of course, let's hope.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard anything about that, but that so maybe to be buried and reopened in 2042. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Going back to the theme park of Universal, what was your favorite ride or attraction then and now at Universal Studios?
Well, back then, it was probably, when I first started working there, it was probably Back to the Future, because it was the first simulator that I remember riding. And, and if you had a good seat in one of the good cars, one of the good DeLoreans, it looked so real coming at you at the time. And it was, it was rough, and it was, it was great. And now, not so much a ride, but I think what's really interesting is the Harry Potter attraction at Islands of Adventure. That is pretty cool. And, that's kind of like what kids relate to in the 2000s, their generation, at the same age as the other kids did Nickelodeon in the 90s, is like, and I like that series. I've met J.K. Rowling once. Actually got a book. But I would say the Harry Potter attraction now and probably Back to the Future ride back then.
Wow, I mean, it's so funny. 'Cause everyone I talk to says Back to the Future is their favorite one. It's so
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
I have to ride the Harry Potter ride though. It's a really impressive ride though. I must say, I've looked at it on YouTube. It's really cool. So
it's a cool ride. It's a cool attraction overall. It really is. And that's a series. I've watched most of the movies. I haven't seen all of them, and I've read one or two of the books. But and I think it also stimulates kids' creativity and interest. It's a totally different animal than Nickelodeon, but it's still something that I think that is quality.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, going back to being a gakmeister, which was probably one of your highlights, the most that people remember you from, or
Hmm.
but
Right.
you guys used to do tours around the country with you and other gakmeisters, like you do like game lab shows and all that. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah, did quite a few of those. In fact, I still work for that company. Just got off the phone with them before I talked to you here. um, and yeah, I know one of the other persons you interviewed, one a good friend of mine, Holly Hayberg Toroya. She would go out on the road with me, and we would do Gakmeister events together. One of the best ones we did was in Philadelphia at the halftime of a 76ers Orlando Magic game. We did a live show, and then they broadcast it on the Comcast Sports Network. I think it was called Prism Sports back then, but it's Comcast Sports now. And so they loved it. In fact, we did the halftime show. We went back to our hotel, and everybody recognized us from being on TV, and they gave us free stuff, in the bar. And then we went back to the arena because they switched it over to a hockey game that night, and they put us up in the luxury boxes and let us watch the hockey games because we were Gakmeisters, because everybody thought we were so cool. So that was a lot of fun doing that. And I did travel around quite a bit, hosting game lab shows and doing that and flying kids in live venues all across the U.S. I did that for years. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. What was slime made out of? I mean, I'm sure we all know, but for those who don't know, just mind mentioning the ingredients that you use to make slime and gak.
Actually, as an official Nickelodeon Gagmeister, I was sworn to secrecy for life because slime is from the Slime Geyser, so I never divulged the contents of slime. Now, if you want to talk about gak, I can tell you all about that.
Okay, cool. Gak it
Yeah,
is.
well, gak, the three most popular gaks that we had back at the time were the earwax gak, the toe jam gak, and the booger gak.
Hmm.
And that's what made Nickelodeon so fun. I mean, just saying that now even still makes me crack up because, it's kind of gross. Kids are grossed out, but yet they were so drawn to it. Parents thought it was gross, but knew it was harmless, and so they just embraced it. But anyway, basically, if I were going to make gak, I would start out with normally like vanilla pudding.
Hmm.
And from there, for like booger gak, I would take chunks of pineapple and green and yellow food dye, and then mix it up in the mixers, and that would be booger gak. Toe jam gak would also start out with vanilla pudding, but I would put marshmallows in it, and I would have red and blue dye, so it would come out be kind of purpley, look like toe jam gak. And then for earwax gak, I would put bits of crunchy cereals like Rice Krispies and make it kind of orangey like earwax. So it looked really disgusting, tasted pretty good, and was always a big hit.
So basically, it's you guys were eating dessert all day long. I guess it sounds like.
Well, they were eating it all day long. I dished it out to a lot of people. I ate it once in a while to make sure that it tasted good and was ready to go. But yeah, they eat a lot of that. A lot of booger earwax toe jam gags. Let me tell you.
Wow. Hey, it was fun though because, like you said, it was every kid's dream to go there and whatnot. But
It sure was.
one thing I want to mention that Holly Payberg mentioned to me is the rubber chicken.
The rubber chicken, yeah. Yeah, that was the rubber chicken was well traveled and was featured in a lot of our pictures and anything that we did. We took them the rubber game lab chicken. We took them with us, even when we weren't working for Nickelodeon. We'd take them on vacations, take them all over the place. It was great.
And where is this? And where is he now? The rubber chicken.
That's a good question. I know he's not with me, but I would imagine he's with somebody I know. If I asked around, I don't know where he is right now. That's the big mystery, the location of the rubber chicken.
Oh God. Was there any type of prop or something that you would have loved to own from the studio or set?
If I had room for it, which I guess I could put it in a garage or something, but I would love to have Olmec. And I know you don't think of that as it's a set piece more than a prop. The live, actor bringing it to life. But that Olmec face, I would love to have that.
Oh my goodness, that would have been so great to have. I mean, I don't even know how big it was. I need to
I
know.
don't remember exactly, but D is not really that tall, but it's probably I'm feet tall, and I think it's probably taller than me. But it's just it just looks so massive and impressive on TV because of the set and the way it was featured and everything and the surroundings. And it would have been a great thing to have. But I would have taken the Silver Monkey. That would have been great too. Anything from Legends, I really would have loved to have. I do have a small piece of the aggro crag from Global Guts, and I've got a picture of me on top of the aggro crag with the whole cast and crew with Steven Spielberg. I got to meet Steven Spielberg when he came out there because he was a creative consultant to Universal Studios at the time, and he came out and surprised us on the set, and we took pictures with him. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that was so cool. And he was there for the opening day, too, as well.
Yes, that's right. And I'll tell you a story about Steven Spielberg. He came to visit Game Lab at Universal right next to Nickelodeon. I believe he had a young child at the time. And, if you remember what Steven Spielberg looked like even now, but especially back then, he had a beard, kind of long, scraggly hair, and he liked to walk around in a T-shirt and ragged jeans and tennis shoes. You'd never think he was the mogul that he was. So he came over to watch a Game Lab show, and I'm not sure if we were sliming his kid or if they were just watching or what it was. But he went up into the audio tech booth, and my friend Laurie was running the audio for the show, and she did not recognize him. Well, guests are not supposed to be up there, so she politely asked him to leave, and he was like very polite and apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry, because someone had obviously either a tour guide or a VIP person had told him, yeah, go ahead and watch it from up here if you like. And so he left the booth, walked down the ladder, got back off to the side of the stage, and they asked him what he was doing there, and he said, I wasn't allowed up there. And when they told Laurie who it was, she about had a cow. And, of course, he came back up, and she apologized. He said, no, you're just doing your job, and I was in the way, and I apologize, and I'm glad that you accommodated me and allowed me to be up here to watch the show. And that was a great Steven Spielberg story.
Oh, man. Oh, man. That was so exciting that you said that.
Oh, yeah, and I was there. I saw it happen, and I was laughing so hard. I felt so bad for her, but it was pretty funny.
Right. But going to the studios, like, do you know why it closed after in '05? Was there a reason for it that it just went away? And...
By that time, I had really been heavily involved with the touring company that I was with and working with Nickelodeon in that capacity, and I didn't really have a presence at the studios. I pretty much, the last time I was at the studios on a regular basis was 2002 or 3, so by the time 2005 rolled around, I really wasn't there. And so I can't really tell you exactly why that left. I do know that by then, like I said earlier, the shift had really focused to animation on Nickelodeon, and their animation studios are in LA. Mm-hmm. So I think their resources went out there, would be my guess, and they didn't have as much of a desire for live production. And so when you don't have the live production, the tour wasn't able to show anything happening on the sound stages, and they just wanted to go a different direction, I guess. And I think that's probably part of the reason, but I wasn't actually physically still there at that time.
I see. Well, it is kind of true because a lot of this animation, if you turn on Nickelodeon now, you just see animation all the time and not really nothing live anymore. But
that's true.
Yeah, but a fun question. You've been slimed before, right? Yourself?
Oh, yeah.
All right. What is it like to get slimed?
Normally, it's very cold because you make your trip to Universal and you see the slime and it looks all frothy and it looks gooey, and it is. But if it's been sitting in a bucket for a while and you're indoors in the AC, woo, and that dumps on you, that's like getting a Gatorade bath as a college coach. It's just really cold and it's just really 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 cold and a lot of fun though.
Yeah, so you got the tables turned on you now. I guess you want to think about it.
Well, that's kind of a tradition. Anytime you leave a Nickelodeon show or go on to something else, even though I never really completely left to this day because I still have some ties to Nick, when I started touring and I was no longer going to be there, like when I was no longer going to be the gakmeister or work on shows, you have to get slimed. That's your farewell sliming.
Wow. Yeah. But the people there, I think they're really just awesome people to be around. Everyone I've talked to has mentioned that. Like, how great were everyone that you worked with in Nickelodeon department?
Oh, they were. Like I said earlier, that's one of the things that impressed me the most when I first started there was that not only were they professional, but they were really easy. get along with and work with. We had so much fun. We loved our job. Um, and we hung out, outside of work, in a limited amount of time that we have, because we were all, those of us who were fortunate enough, were also busy working. But no, just a great group of people. And we had the best rap parties. I mean, we had so much fun. We would do crazy things, like we used to have laser tag downtown Orlando at a place called Qzar. They have
Hmm.
something else there now, but we would rent out the whole thing. One time we rapped on Legends of the Hidden Temple, and we rented out the entire laser place all night, and we just blasted each other all night with laser tag and had a great time. Um, you know, and the producers, they were really, when we bring in other producers to help produce the shows, they were really talented. Like when, the producers of Legends, for example, that was a Stone Stanley production,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's the same group that produced Loveline on MTV with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla.
Wow.
And I remember that show started right after Legends, and I remember the executives telling me, "Hey, you should come out to LA. We got this new talk show we'd like to have you audition for." And I never made it, and I don't know that I was really right for the role anyway, but I would have been auditioning for Adam Carolla's part, and I'm sure he would have gotten it. He was so funny on that. But that's just the kind of stuff they did. Not just Nickelodeon, and so it was just really, really great creativity, a lot of energy and excitement, and we worked hard, but we had a lot of fun, and I think we produced some really good stuff.
Definitely. I mean, years later, people still love everything that you we did, and the '90s are all that on TeenNick. I don't know if you know what that is, but they just show a whole block of shows from '90s Nickelodeon that late at night. So, yeah, it was a
Yeah, I've heard
definite.
of that.
Yeah, but
90s are bad, yep.
yeah, and that slime spewer that was on Figured Out, like, I wonder who made that and how was the slime into that hover that would dump on the panelist's head. I wonder how that came to be. Like, how'd you guys get all of that slime in there? You know?
Well, I was no longer the
Oh yeah.
gakmeister by then, because that was 1999, and I had stopped doing it full time right before that, and I just filled in once in a while. But we had a very talented production crew. We would use a lot of the same people on all the different shows. You'd see once in a while you'd have a new face, of course, but we'd have the same guys. And I know Marty, the guy named Marty. I can't remember his last name now, but he would oversee all that, and they would just sit in there in the soundstage, and they would have a section of the soundstage where it was like an experimental lab where they would just try things out, build stuff, make it work, and just like me experiment the gag. They would just do whatever they had to do to make it work. And
Do you think working for Nickelodeon was a beneficial learning experience in terms of the work you do now?
oh, absolutely, because Nickelodeon was a very positive reinforcer and reminder that if you love what you do and you put your all into it, you're going to reap the rewards. You're going to have successful product. You're going to have loyal fans, and it's going to carry over with you into other productions that you work on. And yeah, I definitely believe that for respect.
Yeah, assume because it was just a magnificent. It was also fun, but also kind of educational for viewers, like at the
Right.
studio to experience what you guys all did. And
Absolutely.
it's been going for 8 years now, and people still love Nick Studios. They just still love the production, the slime, of course. But would you like to see it reopen one day?
I would love to see it reopen, and I think really now in the last couple of years, it's probably the best chance, if there is any chance for that to happen, because of people like you and people that have access to social media now. You can get a campaign started, and you can get the word out there, and you can get a lot of support. And eventually, if enough people are heard, it comes down to the bottom line. If people making decisions and have the ability to make these kinds of things happen see that enough people want it, it comes down to dollars and cents for them. If they think this is something that people really want and want back, and they've been without it for so long, and there's a lot of pent up demand and desire to have that. I think they're going to see that it's a smart business move as well. So I hope it happens, and I think I like to think anyway, being optimistic, that there is at least a small chance of something happening.
Right. That's why I wanted to create the documentary because I think that it was such a special place. And I'm not saying that just to be all sappy, but it was really No other place was really like it. It was really the place where Nick was made, and place where kids and adults could feel comfortable and see up close and personal what it was like to create a TV show and be a part of it, you know. Especially with the whole theme of Universal Studios there, of course, and inside a theme park, that just made it more unique, you know.
It was. There's never been anything like it since, and and I think for a whole new generation of kids, if they saw it now, you would update it for today and so forth, but it would blow them away just like it did back then.
What do you think made it so great and special, Nick Studios, Florida?
Well, because like you said, there's nothing ever like it. It allowed kids. That's the closest they could ever get to their celebrity heroes on Nickelodeon. I mean, it's not even like when you go to LA and you're in the studio audience. I mean, you got to be on a tour where you get to talk down to someone on the soundstage, and then once in a while have one of the celebrities talk back to you, or maybe you got to see them come up on the GAC stage with me, and you got to be right there with them and shake their hand or get a picture with them. And I mean, not everybody got to do that every day, but you were right there. You knew you were sitting right where your shows that you love were being made. You got to go through the tour tube. You got to see Game Lab. You got to see hair and makeup. You got to see wardrobe, the sound stages. And I think the kids really, it made it real for them. So when they went back home and they're watching it on TV, like, wow, I met him or her, or I saw that set. When kids would come in the tour tube and the glass would be facing down on a very popular Nickelodeon show, whether it was Legends or whatever, as soon as the kids would enter, they would see Olmec, they would just literally scream, Olmec, Olmec, or, whatever the show was, they would say, oh my gosh, it's right there, real in front of them, and it was so unique.
Yeah, and another thing too, like they would shoot promos or bumpers there, and they would pull random kids out of the park or the audience or whatever you want to say, and let them be in the commercial on TV, basically. So that was another great thing too, pulling.
Yeah, I actually worked in the on-air promos for a little while too, and I actually wrote some, and I actually wrote some of the stuff for Nick Jr. Hi there, Face here. I wrote some of those, so I definitely remember pulling kids out and shooting promos.
Wow, so you actually wrote that? Hi dear face here.
I did not create it,
Oh,
and I
okay.
did not write most of them, but I did write a couple of them. Yes, and that was part of my job in the on-air promo department. As I would write on-air promos. Some of them they would use, some of they wouldn't. But I did a couple of them that they used for Face and Stick Stickly. I don't know if you remember Stick
Oh, I
Stickly.
remember Stick Stickly. He was awesome.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I also wrote some pre-shows for the Nickelodeon shows that we do at the Paramount parks around the country, like Kings Island, Kings Dominion,
hmm
Great America in California. Six Flags, some of them had them, I believe, and I would write the pre-shows for that, and then I also wrote some on-air promos. So you're right. We pull people out and say, hey, do you mind being part of the background, or do you mind being interviewed, or just saying a couple words, and then the kids would see it on TV, and then later I was there when they did the original like webcast and stuff, and kids would see it online. And so that's why it was so unique. Where else could they have ever done that before, during, or since?
Yeah, but and thank God for YouTube for us to see more behind
Oh
the
yeah.
scenes for all of this stuff. I,
Oh, I've seen so many things on YouTube because so many people found their old, VHS tapes and they had it transferred to DVD, and then they were able to get it uploaded to YouTube, and then you just put in searches, and I see all my friends doing Game Lab and just random things that people shot that we never thought we'd see again, and because of YouTube, you have a chance.
yeah, I mean, I've been studying them and all. It was just, oh gosh, it was a really just an awesome time, I must say.
Yep,
But
Sonic the Hedgehog and all that.
right, right. Don't forget about that. but but Mr. Hemke, well, I think that concludes everything. It was
Okay.
really great talking to you, I must say. Really.
Great, great talking to you too, and I'll check out your stuff. You gonna maybe take part of this and have it on YouTube? You said, or
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I mean, I might, like you said, I might start a campaign or something. I'm thinking about doing Kickstarter, but I'm not sure yet. But I have to.
okay. Hey, let me know if you ever need anything else, or you want to do anything else. It'd be my pleasure.
All right, cool. Not a problem. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Have a nice day, sir.
You too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.